You have your camera on. No battles.
So that's working.
I was trying to get. I don't know why it's not letting me save it. Okay, well.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, it's the first time doing this, so it's got some technical issues.
That makes
Okay, all right.
All right. How can we? All right. So we got you on there now. I can see you on there.
There we go.
Just getting all set up, and it's kind of a debacle doing this for the first time. So hopefully everybody that's coming on just have a little bit of patience with us. We're working on the technical difficulties right now.
Good old technical difficulties.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think we might have that done and out of the way. If you want to get started, I'm going to go ahead and just introduce us, and then we could just roll from there and see what kind of reactions we get from people. I know we're going to have to keep track of uh, our guests that come on the live feed. Excuse me. So I'll have to try to keep track of both of you. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is a joint collaboration with 8158 Podcast, Stories of Sacrifice, and also the debrief with Tyler Burns. And I am Rico. How's it going, Tyler?
It's going good, man. Going good. Can't complain. Uh, Hopefully everybody can hear me on TikTok. I kind of brought it a little closer to myself, so
Okay. Yeah. So, can everybody hear Tyler pretty good? So,
yeah, there we go. Awesome. Good deal.
yeah, cool. Outstanding. Um, like I said, this is 8158 Podcast with Rico and also the debrief with Tyler Burns. We both run podcasts. He has an amazing podcast. They kind of align up with similar aspects and similar traits and situations. So some situations may be a little emotional. We are going to be very sensitive to the TikTok rules. So, but you guys will have an opportunity to kind of give your feedback and have a voice as well. And we'll try to do our best to kind of engage with you while we're doing this live collaboration.
Trying to make it work on two different programs at the same time. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, that's right, buddy. We'll make it happen. I mean, this is the first time for me, and obviously, it's the first time for you to do this on both ends of the spectrum. Um, Obviously, this is my first podcast. I can't remember how many episodes we're in right now and how many are waiting to be dropped. I know we're nearing the 40s right now. So,
Nice. I don't do a whole lot of TikTok live. Um, No particular reason why. I probably should, to be honest. I've done YouTube live a few times, but giving it a whirl.
right, right. So, one of the first questions that I wanted to ask you is you have a background in first responder, right?
I do. I have a kind of I've done just about every job within public safety at one point or another. Um, so I started my career off in, um, I was a firefighter for 10 years. I was a EMT for about 8 years, 6 or 8 years. I worked as a correctional officer at a prison for a while. Um, I was a 911 dispatcher for a little while. Done quite a bit. The only thing I wasn't was a police officer.
Okay. So you had quite a career in that field. Uh, I myself have not been a first responder. However, a lot of my family were military and worked in the first responder field. My cousin was a sheriff's deputy for 12 years and also a military veteran 20 years. My brother was a Marine. Uh, my uncle, he was in the Marines. I had an uncle that was in the Navy, and my grandfather fought in World War II in the Marines. And my grandfather on my mother's side fought in World War II in the Army. So, and
Yes.
my step grandfather, who was a police detective growing up as a child. So, and my dad was a firefighter. So, I pretty much grew up around it.
Yeah, a lot of my family was also in the military. My grandfather, he was in the Navy during Vietnam. My great grandfather was in the Army in World War II and was actually captured when they were fighting in one of the battles in Africa, trying to go after Rommel.
Okay.
And yeah, he got captured, and he didn't talk about it a whole lot, which was pretty common with World War II veterans. But from what I had talked about, or what I had talked with my grandmother about, was he he was in a POW camp for I think a couple years, and when he got out, he only weighed about 175, 180 pounds when he went in, but when he got out, he was like a buck 30, buck
Right.
20, somewhere around there. I guess there was a guy that was in a camp next to them. We're not really sure how far away, but I guess that guy was sneaking off in the middle of the night and would bring food to my grandpa just to keep him alive. We have no idea who the guy was either.
Right. Right. That's crazy. I mean, I know they went through a lot and they fought hard, they fought well, and they did their job.
True story.
Man, you got to give it up to them, gentlemen. They, they are definitely our heroes, aside from the heroes that are working day in and day out to protect us and to, protect our properties and to preserve our lives and all of those things. And I hope that through this, that a lot of more people would appreciate what they do because our first responders are there to help us. And a lot of them, you know, there might be some bad apples, but you know what? There's bad apples in everything. But the majority of officers and firefighters and EMS and first responders, they do an absolute amazing job at what they do.
100%.
So, so today we want to talk to our guests, and we would like to tell you guys why this is very important to us in this collaboration, why this conversation matters. And the conversation matters is because we are dealing with specifically at this moment, we are our mental health and the PTSD in the first responder culture. So, what is your take on the PTSD and the first responder culture with the mental health issues that are going on?
So, PTSD within public safety is still kind of a fairly new concept. And in fact, I don't even really love saying PTSD. Um, I would prefer to call it PTS, post traumatic stress.
Mhm.
I don't look at it as a disorder, right? It's something
Yep.
that it's something that you it's a badge that you get from all the crap that you see constantly and all the crap that you deal with. But right now in public safety, police, fire, and EMS, you have a higher chance of insert word that we're not allowed to say than you do from line of duty.
Okay.
And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, you have a higher chance of, can we say unalive?
Yeah,
Is that
unalive
okay?
is appropriate.
Yeah, you have a higher chance of unaliving than you do in the line of duty, and that's a concern, right? It continues to grow. The problem is a lot of times there's no preparation for it, right? It kind of just hits you all at once. So I have been diagnosed with PTS from all the crap that I dealt with. I worked for a city EMS service, probably it's the second largest city in the state of Indiana. And I didn't get to that point, but things were things were bad. Like I could see I was angry all the time. I was more stressed when I was at home than I was at work. Like when I was at work, I was in the calm. I could make decisions instantly. I had control of things. When I was at home, I felt like I didn't have any control. And unfortunately, the family's the ones that, they take the brunt end of all of that. But the problem is we have systems in place. There's just about every department in the country, almost every department in the country has a um, they have a peer support group set up, but that's post incident. No, there's not very many people that are talking, with the exception of a few big names that are talking to firefighters, police officers, paramedics, getting them prepared for what to do when you get to that situation ahead of time.
Right. Yeah, it seems like they don't have a lot of readiness or preparedness for that uh, before you get into it. I mean, you'd think they would have some kind of a class to kind of prepare you for, you know, before you dive into the field and kind of get you mentally prepared for, the mental health aspect of it. Because I know it's got to be really tough. It's got to be really hard with
And that's
PTS. I know some people call it PTSI, post traumatic stress injury, because it's an injury to the brain. Post traumatic stress, I mean, it's all fitting. PTSD, I agree with you. It's not a disorder, it's something that has happened to you, it's something that you've lived through, a traumatic incident, a traumatic situation that has injured your mind to the point that has affected you not only mentally but physically.
and it's getting better. There's a particular individual by the name of Travis House that is very well known within the public safety community, and he goes around across the country and he has conversations with you know the different departments within public safety, and he does an extraordinary job at helping get people prepared ahead of time. And I think the big thing is trying to find that balance of, you want to prepare rookies for what they're going to see, but you don't want to scare them away, right?
Yeah,
So we want them we want them in the field. We need them in the field. Where every department across the country is hurting to find people. So we don't want to scare them away, but we also don't want them to get to a point where they feel like they're too far gone. And that was one of the big things with me. The first time I ever went to speak with somebody, with a counselor, I specifically told them that I did not want a diagnosis, because my fear was, if I had that label put on me, and I know there's tons of people across the country that still feel this way, but if I had that label put on me, I felt like that was going to be a hindrance in getting into another department.
Okay.
Police, they feel this way more than even the fire service does, because if a police officer goes and says, you know what, mentally I'm not okay, I need help, and they get put on light duty or whatever the case may be, they get treated the same way in some aspects. They get treated the same way as somebody who is on uh, paid administrative leave because they're being investigated for something they did in the field. So they get their gun taken away, they get their badge taken away. They have to go do light duty work, which everybody's going to see them doing light duty, and everybody's going to know why they're in it. So it makes things difficult for police, especially.
Exactly. That's I don't- you know I don't know what can be done to change that kind of culture. I've never lived in that culture. But I mean, I would be a very big advocate in helping to make that change, and maybe just talking about it and trying to bring it to light might help with making the change with that kind of culture to normalize it, I guess.
Yeah, my fear right now is, and this isn't every fire chief, every police chief, this isn't every administrator, but my fear is that every department is creating these peer support groups, but I'm worried that it's going to get oversaturated. I'm worried that it's going to get to the point where they create these groups, but they're not really changing anything else, right? Like they create a peer support organization for those really bad calls, but not everybody who goes on those bad calls are instantly struggling with it as soon as the call is done. Sometimes it can take days or weeks or months or even years before they start having issues.
Right.
I tell everybody the best thing you can do is to talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be a counselor, it doesn't have to be a peer support person. It should be somebody that you trust, somebody that you have respect for.
Hmm.
Um, you know, family, and this is a whole nother topic that we can get to in a little bit. Family, you should talk to your family as well. But everybody always says, well, my wife doesn't understand, or my husband doesn't understand because they don't do the job. Well, they don't understand because you don't allow them to understand. You don't have that conversation with them. You don't tell them what it is that you do.
Right.
EMS is really bad about that. I, I I can't tell you how many times I would come home and my wife would ask me, "So, how was your shift?" "Oh, it's fine, just drove around." That's why half the community thinks that all we do is drive ambulances, because we don't tell them what we actually do unless you've ever been on an ambulance before.
Right. Unless you live the life or have been gone through it, then you know you really can't say for sure.
100%.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say, but it's all out of ignorance. It's not something that they have gone through, and I imagine that's pretty tough when you hear certain comments or certain things come along your way, and people say negative things, and they don't know. They're ignorant, not in a bad way. It's just they don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of people, myself included, I always did this. Somebody would come up and they would talk to you, whether it's at a party, whether it's whatever, doesn't matter. They'd come up and say, "Oh, you're a firefighter. Oh, you're a medic. What's the worst thing you've ever seen?" And a lot of people in the field hate it when civilians ask that question, and myself included. I used to hate that when I was asked that, because my mentality was, I don't want to relive it. I don't want to push that on you, so now you have to suffer. But what we don't understand is that is an opening, that is an opportunity to talk about that call that may be causing problems for you. That is an opportunity to get it off your chest, get it out of your head, and share what it is that's bothering you. But
Yeah.
we don't typically want to look at it that way. We look at it as, well, this is a civilian that has no idea. They just, they just want to know the gory details of our job. And that may be true, but at the end of the day, you can't look at it that way. You got to look at it as an opportunity.
Right. To kind of share with them that, it's not always what it's cracked up to be, or just some of the details and not all of the gory details.
Right. And you see these TV shows like Cops, or what was the one where they followed fire trucks and ambulance? Or Live PD was one. There was like a police or EMS where they followed around and went on calls with them. But
Like Night Watch.
they show, yeah, Night Watch. They show stuff like that, and but people don't understand. Like, they're not going to show you everything. They're not going to show you the 5 kids that were running from the cops at 130 miles an hour that went airborne into a tree and they all died. They're not going to show you that stuff. They're not
Right.
going to show you, somebody who's got, I don't know if I could say that, but somebody who got, unalived
Yeah.
by 30 different projectiles. They're not going to show you that either. Um, they're only going to show you the things that they can get away with on cable TV, but doesn't make it rated R. They're going to keep it PG as much as they can.
Right. Anything that excites them enough to keep them watching, but not gory enough to kind of get themselves into trouble.
Exactly. And I've got a buddy who's been on the first 48. He's been on the first 48 for ever since they started. Yeah, he's one of the detectives, Jason White from Tulsa PD, and it's really the same thing. Like, they're not going to show you everything. They just show you enough just to keep your interest peaked.
Right. Yeah. So, Tyler, he definitely has quite a bit of experience in the field. He's done it for a number of years, fire, EMS, and stuff. So he definitely has some stories in the field. I mean, if he wouldn't mind sharing some of those minor stories or nothing in great detail, I mean, he's more than welcome to do that. Uh, and then we can talk more about the stigma behind some PTSD, PTSI, or PTS.
Yeah, so I kind of started sharing the one a little bit. That was actually my last call working for the city in EMS. It was about 5 kids that were running from the police, and they were doing about 130 miles an hour. They went through an intersection, and went airborne. Vehicle went into a tree, and you couldn't even tell what kind of vehicle it was. Like, the vehicle was destroyed. Everybody got ejected from the vehicle. Probably
Oh my gosh.
3 out of the 5 became one with the tree, to the point where when fire got on scene, they had to actually, like, carve into the tree to be able to get them out.
Holy moly.
Um, One person was laying on the sidewalk next to the vehicle, and another one had traveled probably about 50 feet into a house, where actually part of that vehicle had also traveled along the side with that individual and had hit the gas line of that house. Um, in fact, my partner and I on the ambulance, we were the first ones on scene, and police were right behind us. And as soon as I parked my vehicle and started basically trying to get the general public out of the way, this rookie police officer, he picked the wrong day to talk to me because I was already in a bad mood. But he comes up and starts screaming and hollering at me, telling me what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I lost it. I I'll be honest, I went off on him and I said, "Dude, I've got more hazmat experience, more fire experience. I've got more experience than you do in your left leg at this point because you are brand spanking new. Don't tell me how to do my job. Go over there and block traffic and keep people out of this area." And I said it right in front of his sergeant. And I look at his sergeant and he's just chuckling and walks away. I eventually apologized to the sergeant. I said, I'm sorry. I should not have gone off on your rookie like that. And he goes, nope, he deserved it. It needed to happen. I said,
Yeah.
okay. I don't even know if that guy still works for the police department or not, but crazy stuff, man. But we had a great relationship with police though too. Like there were times where we would get patients that were um they were on some kind of insert drug here and they were extremely combative and they would fight with us. And there was a lot of them that I was very good friends with that they would be like, no, you got this, you take care of it. Like, oh, come on, step in and do your job. Like, I'm not fighting anybody today.
Right.
But that was just kind of the relationship we had with each other. And at the end of the day, we would all be there to help each other out too.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I know there's kind of like that dynamic between police and fire and that the friendly fire type of thing, competition, who's better.
Yeah, and it's I used to say that public safety is a brotherhood, especially in the fire service. Uh, for reasons that we can get into later, I don't look at it that way anymore. However, public safety is like a big family to the point where we'll pick on each other. We'll pick on police, fire will pick on EMS, vice versa. Whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, if somebody picks on a civilian picks on a police officer, or a civilian picks on a firefighter, we're gonna have each other's back. We're gonna stick up for each other.
Yeah.
It's just like two brothers fighting, like an older brother and a younger brother. Older brother's gonna pick on the younger brother, but as soon as somebody else steps in and starts doing the same thing, oh, it's game on.
Right. Right. Yeah, I can imagine you know, having that dynamic with the police and the fire, it's a love-hate relationship, but you got to have that dynamic. Um, it's inevitable. But just like growing up, like you said, big brother, you're always going to fight. You're always going to have
It's a true
disagreements.
story. I mean, my sister still wants to fight with me all the time, so there's that. She's older than me.
Your sister's right all the time, so just so you know.
Yeah, that's what she tells me. She's gonna listen to this and she's gonna give me so much crap.
Yeah,
That's all right.
yeah, yeah. Uh, some other talking points that we were going to go over is we were going to kind of touch back with some stats around PTSI and the stigma within the departments. My myself, I am no stranger to suffering from any type of mental health issues. Uh, I have childhood traumas that I've gone through for many years and am now starting to kind of overcome them through medications and therapies and stuff. But there's a lot of pride going on, and I didn't want to face it until I got older, until somebody, I'm not going to name who, girl in the yellow dress, decided to tell me that I needed to get help. So I did.
Smart girl.
Yeah. And it's helped out tremendously. But, we're looking at other avenues to kind of help to cope with a lot of those issues as well. But what's your take on the stigma within the departments dealing with this situation?
So the stigma still exists, right? Like I had mentioned earlier, for police officers, it's a little bit more difficult for them, or at least they feel it's more difficult for them to have that conversation. And again, this is not an all encompassing every department across the country because every department is different. But a lot of them feel like they can't necessarily have that conversation
Right.
for fear of, you know, persecution or fear of being treated like they just did something wrong. Um, in general, in public safety, a lot of people don't want to have that conversation and say, I need help, because it's always been instilled in us that we have to be strong for our patients. We have to be there for them. We have to be ready for that next call.
Yeah.
You know, there may be like that call that I was telling you about. You know, if that would have been the start of my shift, it may have bothered me. Um, and I may have been, you know, more than likely, I would have been like, well, I got to shove it down and move on to the next call. And the way I described it to everybody, there's this box inside my brain, and this box is like full of files from all the crap that I've seen over the years.
Right.
And every time you deal with something, you shove it in that box and then you lock it. Well, every once in a while, that lid wants to come open. So now you got to lock it and put some chains around it. Well, then it wants to come back open again. So now you got to put some chains on it and you got to put a bowling ball on top of it. You just keep piling crap on top of it just to keep it closed
Right.
until one day when you least expect it, and it's usually at a time where you don't want it to happen. It's going to burst wide open in front of everybody, and you're either going to lose your sanity and you're just going to start bawling your eyes out, or you're going to just go off, or whatever. Something's going to happen. Everybody's different, but it's always going to happen at a time where you don't want it to happen.
Right.
That's the best way that I've explained it to people. And I've had that happen in front of a group of bikers at a motorcycle ride, a charity ride, where I just lost it because a call came in for a run that I had dealt with 2 weeks prior. And I just lost it in front of all these big burly bikers. And some of my best friends came, a couple of my best friends came and stood right in front of me to shield me from everybody else.
Right. Yeah, I kind of remember you telling us that story before, and I imagine that was pretty hard for you to cope with hearing the call and then having to relive a similar situation.
Yeah, that was a tough call. That was obviously I've received some tremendous help from that call, thanks to EMDR and some pretty amazing individuals. But um, that was a call where it was a family inside like a minivan SUV, and they went through. They came up to a stop sign. The cross traffic had the right of way, and the cross traffic that had the right of way, there was a tow truck that was driving by. Well, the driver in the family vehicle had ran the stop sign and got T-boned or actually T-boned the tow truck. Tow truck flipped. The family's vehicle also flipped, but landed on its tires. The mom in that car, she was in the front seat with the oldest daughter sitting on her lap. They did not have a seatbelt on.
Oh, geez.
Daughter got ejected through the windshield, and that was rough. Daughter was laying in the middle of the street when I got on scene, and that sat with me for quite a while. So 2 weeks later, when I see the page for the exact same intersection, exact same description, exact same time of day, and I'm at an event with a bunch of bikers, I'm like, oh crap, here we go. In fact, I saw a notification on Facebook today saying that there was another crash at that intersection, and this has been 6 years now.
So
Horrible intersection.
they got to do something about that intersection.
We've been telling them that for 10 to 15 years, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. where I work, we have a number of bad intersections, and they are working on them. Uh, they've been putting in those roundabouts, uh, eliminating the lights and putting in the roundabouts. But there's one intersection in particular that is close to where our yard is, and I personally witnessed a T-bone accident right in front of me as I was turning, going to the yard. I was just waiting for the cross traffic, and it was an elderly man and I guess his granddaughter. And fortunately for them, they survived, and the people that T-boned them, they were okay. Uh, and I also had it on camera because I have a dash cam in my truck, which I provided myself because I want to protect myself and the company. You know, it's a small company. They don't put dash cams in their vehicles, but it's something I decided to do for myself to protect myself, and because there's a lot of crazy drivers out there. People they like to pull out, they hit their brakes in front of you. It's hard to stop 80,000 pounds, and I don't want to be responsible for hurting anyone. You know, that's my number one concern and priority is being safe and making sure that everybody else is safe. And if you're driving crazy, I want to make sure I have proof. But
Yeah,
back
true
to that
story.
story, I did have that recorded, and I handed the SD card over to law enforcement so they can do their investigation. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's
To help them, deal with that until you know medical and fire got there.
that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and now the Ring door cameras are helping police quite a bit. So if anybody's got one of those doorbell cameras, whenever there's any kind of incident, car accident, anything like that, those can be very helpful with those investigations too.
Yeah, yeah, we have several cameras around our house. We just got
Same.
a new security alarm system. We had the Ring, we still have it. We still have the cameras for the Ring on the outsides, but we got two new cameras and another security system for the doorbell that we just got into that alarms the house. And if anybody breaks a window, if they open the door, then everything just goes off, and then they call us immediately. They call police, actually. And plus, we got the fire detector ones too that put next to the fire detectors. So it alarms the fire department. I think it's a cool little system.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
like he's got some difficulties there.
No, I was checking to see if there was a way because I just realized that this may not be showing up on my TikTok page, and I was seeing if there was a way I could share it on mine.
You should be able to at the bottom right, the right corner should have an arrow to share.
Yeah, I just added it to my story, so we'll see.
Trying to get people involved. Yeah, I'm trying to get other people here. Get people trying to get them involved, and hopefully they show up. I know people get busy and they doing their thing, and you know, uh, it's hard. And a lot of people do things at night, which is funny because we have to work during the day. I have to work during the day,
Hmm.
so it's hard to stay up late at night to get on lives and do all that stuff. Plus, the housework around the house and all that stuff. So it's work after work.
Yeah, no, I get it. There was something I was gonna say. Now I don't remember what it was. Hmm.
Did it have anything to do
So
with stigmas or anything?
Well, so there's this website that I encourage everybody to go to. It's called firsthelp.org. Number one, sthelp.org. And on there, it actually has the numbers of the amount of unalives for specifically for public safety. And it actually includes corrections, dispatchers, EMS, fire, law enforcement, military, and public defenders. And you can actually check the different boxes of what you want to see. So, like, I'll put, oh, geez. So I'm gonna put EMS, fire, and law enforcement, and then you can select the year too.
So it gives you
But
statistics.
yeah, it gives you the statistics. So, 2022 for those three jobs was the worst year in the last 5 years that we've had with 212. So far in 2025, we're at 55.
And we just
Um,
not even halfway through the year yet.
you know. It breaks it down. Um, it breaks it down by gender, by race, years of service, um, which is quite interesting. So for EMS, the average years of service for those individuals was over 10 years. Firefighter was over 14 years, and law enforcement over 16 years.
Yeah.
Then it also breaks it down and says, first responders who were military veterans.
Right.
EMS was 26, firefighters were 100, such tiny print, 125, but law enforcement was 1,324.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's
So it provides a lot of good detail. So I um, highly recommend people check that out. There's a lot of good information on there. Oh, I can do.
Oh, why is it stopped? Oh, what's going on here? Recording has stopped. Refresh.
Okay, so I got one headphone in for my phone and one headphone in for I just lost them on YouTube. I can hear you. Yeah.